welcome everybody back to the Behind the Well show. Roger Abel, Elias Randall is right next to me. We're kicking off summer, and summer, Elias, is vacation time. And I bring that up because we're going to kick it off with a Wall Street Journal article that I recently read. Europe's out, apparently, and road trips are in.
But
Wonder why.
People are still going on vacation.
People are out of money, so they're just going to spend less.
That sounds like a reasonable thing to do.
I think
You still want to go on vacation, though. The road trip's probably less expensive than a European vacation.
I think a lot of it has to do with consumer confidence. If you look at when this article was actually written, it was, bear with me, I'll get the date. It was May 16th. But interestingly enough, just like a few days ago, consumer confidence score has massively rebounded. I want to say it's like one of the highest consumer confidence scores since 2020. And when I read this article, there was a couple quoted and saying their family's going to go to Europe. They booked the tickets, refundable hotel. But when the stock market started dropping in April, they decided to cancel the trip.
Well, and there were home purchases being canceled during that too.
We did that article on Wall Street Journal. It was the highest canceled home purchases of luxury homes, which those are the people that typically
agreed upon price but had not closed yet.
There you go. Yeah. So I think that's really interesting. But what's even more interesting is how fast sentiment in general can switch. Trying to get that number. U.S. consumer confidence, this is on Bloomberg, jumps most in 4 years.
So I feel like I have a couple takes on this. And I think maybe this article points to one of them a little bit. Maybe consumer confidence coming back because people might be, people were preparing for slowing economy. People were really scared of the tariffs. Maybe they're just changing what they were going to do. So I wonder if there's kind of this psychological shift from, oh man, we really need to scale it back to, okay, we can prepare for slowdown, but here's what we can do, right? Maybe we were going to go to Europe, but we're not going to do that, but we'll do a summer road trip. You know, it's going to be 50% less expensive. It's arbitrary numbers, just whatever it might be. So maybe that's helping people's consumer confidence is, okay, we do need to scale back a little bit, but we're still going to have a good time. We're still going to have fun. We can still do things. And then I also wonder a little bit too if maybe Americans, just our attention span is just so short that we just move on from things so fast. And I was thinking about this with the tariffs. Like how many people are still really like scared and paying attention to that? Or are they kind of just moving on to the next thing?
I think the stock market would tell you people are starting to move on. But
right.
Here's what's interesting. It's really politically divided. It really is. I sat with customers the last couple of days and they're still really, really worried about everything. Yeah. And they asked, how do we get over this? I'm like, you're going to have to figure out how to get a really great media filter. You're going to have to figure out how to separate politics and the stock market and the economy, because the economy and the stock market doesn't care whether you're Republican or Democrat. Doesn't matter. They don't care. But people have made this partisan. And ultimately, it's going to probably damage some of those people. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. It could damage either one if you take a partisan view. You can be too aggressive or too conservative if you kind of stray away from your core financial planning, appetite for risk, let's say, or risk capacity, probably a better way to phrase it.
That's a good point. And it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate how people allow the political environment to really dictate their outlook.
I've never seen it
No.
in 20 years. It's the first time I've seen it in 20 years.
Yeah, everything's very polarized now.
I mean, it's massively different depending upon what side you're taking. Even if you take even people that claim to be middle of the road still are taking a side. They're leaning a way.
Right. Which, to your point about building a media filter and ignoring that noise, maybe, I mean, would you just be happier if you didn't watch the news and you took withdrawals from your account and looked at your statements once a year?
Yeah, everybody would. And that's really what matters. Unless you're a day trader and you need all of your money tomorrow, why would you check your account balance every day?
Which is, it's hard to do. And sometimes I feel our industry, because we tell people don't look. Like we say, hey, one of the best things you can do is ignore some of these things. Don't look at your accounts when there's chaos. But then the flip side of that is we offer a client portal. We offer an app on the phone. So we give everyone the tools to look at their stuff every day, which is part of customer service and the client experience, right? You have to provide those things. But to me, it's kind of funny how we do provide all the tools to be able to do that, but then we tell people don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying about that. And Jonas, who's one of the advisors with us, he always brought up the concept, how many people are out there checking the value of their house every day?
I don't think many.
No,
maybe
because
none.
Why? Because your house isn't liquid and it's not easy to make a change. It's like a pretty big process.
Right.
What if changing your investment portfolio away from, so back up, someone does a financial plan, figures out what their risk capacity is, what asset allocation they need to be successful. And to switch from that, you had to go through all of the steps that you do to sell a home. Nobody would check their account balance. We've just made it too easy to make changes.
Yeah, making a trade in your account is as simple as either a phone call or a login and a click of a button.
Right. So that's
one of the easiest things to do.
Here's the second problem. We have a lot of financial media, and I enjoy watching the financial media. There's a couple of stations that I watch that I think take a pretty middle of the road political view. And I don't feel like they make investing a partisan part of their thesis per se. But all of those shows, Elias, are geared with a trader mentality. There is not one financial media show out there right now that has taken the stance of we're going to help people with investing. It is all run, the people they bring on the shows, they're option traders, they're swing traders, they're level 3 traders. All of these different things, not very few are helping people invest long-term. There's a few. Yeah, Josh Brown will come on and he'll talk, and they'll have a few other financial advisors, but most of these people on the show are traders. So that what that portrays to the general public is that to be good at this, you need to be watching our show every day. You need to be making changes every day. And all of those things lean towards a trader mentality. So it's really hard to kind of train somebody that these shows, while they're entertaining, you have to really filter out what's important to the long-term investor, not just the trader.
And to add to that, I think some of the happiest retired people, some of the most successful people I know, they just don't spend their time engaged in that type of content, or just really like spend a disproportionate amount of time engaged in the news in general. Because if you watch those shows, which we're pretty dialed in with the financial media and what's going on, but yeah, there is. I mean, That's true. The information is provided in a way to get you to tune in daily. And there's no daily change that a successful investor can make that's going to drive whether you're successful or not over long periods of time.
I had a customer probably 8 years ago watching CNBC every day. And he was like trying to make his daily decisions on his portfolio based upon what the bond market was doing. And
this is not a professional.
He doesn't know anything about investing, but watch CNBC. So every day I have to make this change based upon what's happening in the bond. I'm like, well, what are you watching? Well, CNBC. Okay, well, they're traders. I love CNBC. It's my favorite financial show, right? Because Josh Brown comes on. And I like Steve Leisman and some of the other guys who are on there. But at the end of the day, it was wrecking his overall view of investing. He thought he was like a day trader in the bond market. And finally I'm like, yeah, I'm not. I'm good. You should just take this to E-Trade or wherever you want to go do this yourself. Because it was every day I get a call. I'm like, well, what are you watching?
Yeah, and why are you calling
and why?
every day?
Nobody should be that tuned in unless you're going to be like a level 3 options trader or whatever that means. I had someone tell me that one time. I'm like, okay, whatever that is.
Yeah. I had a prospect tell me that they were a level 3 options trader.
How much money do they have?
Oh my gosh. Dude, don't even get me started. That's one of the most
I know.
And you know this, yeah, and because you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, but the most bizarre conversations you have with people are people with no investable net worth. And I'm not knocking on them. What they have is a lot to them. But when you have a meeting with a potential new family that's considering working with us and they have what we consider some real money, they can retire and all that, don't ever talk about being the level 3 options trader that has $3 to $5 million and they are a real do-it-yourself investor. You think they're calling here to come have a meeting?
No,
but it's
they're a real trader,
right? But it's this 65-year-old person I'm a level 3 options trader. You're 65. You have $200,000. Like I'm not being negative towards you, but you clearly have demonstrated you don't know how to create wealth with this strategy.
I just Googled what level 3 options trader actually was.
I never even cared. It's probably just the way so you know how we disclose,
he's made enough trades that wherever he's at said, you're level 3, you're allowed to do this.
Right. He's done enough where
that's all it is.
And his do-it-yourself account, they'll authorize him for level 3. Where like a level 1's just like a beginner. You can do a little hedging and stuff, but you can't do like the really crazy trades.
Yeah. So he's allowed to do it. Doesn't mean he's good at it. Just means he's allowed to do it.
Yeah. They're probably just setting him up for a margin call or something.
So I thought about you the other day because I know, and I am too, potentially looking for a new house. And I happened to run by a Wall Street Journal article talking about American homes are shrinking. But as they shrink, they're still ultra unaffordable for a lot of people. Yeah. And I brought this up to you. And, I look at the neighborhood I live in now, and if you just look at the cost per square foot, it's like 40% more. And people can't afford to spend that. So the way they're getting into these new homes are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And if you drive around to some of the neighborhoods in town, there's a lot of homes that are 20 years old that are a lot bigger than the stuff they build today. Like you just don't see a whole lot in our town, a whole lot of places over 6,000 square feet anymore. And 20 years ago, they're a decent number.
And I think this is a combination of a few things. One, it probably is reasonable for homes to get a little bit smaller. You think back to the type of neighborhoods people grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Families were bigger. So in America, we've had this over time, families have become smaller. People tend to have less children now, and homes have become much bigger. So like at some point that has to start to correct itself, right? Like you can't just have bigger and bigger houses and less people that need to live in it for shelter. So our homes, it really doesn't make sense how it's worked out, but it was also a lot more affordable to build a bigger house, certainly
So I think
10 and 15 years ago.
Okay, so here's the question I'm going to pose to you. Clearly, cost of construction has gone up.
Yeah, and that will continue.
But I think when people are building a new house, part of the problem is expectations. Because you could do a pretty vanilla finish for a decent price per square foot. Right? Like,
Yeah.
you could go get yourself just average carpet, average flooring. It doesn't have to be hardwood. You could have some, back in the day, they used to have linoleum floors. Now they have LVP. Here's my question. I think part of what's driving up, you can agree or disagree, driving up the price is social media.
From like what perspective?
Well, they're
like
out
the
on
finishes that people expect.
They're out
to
on
have.
Pinterest. They're out on House. They're sitting on Facebook or TikTok or whatever they're on. And once you go search for like anything regarding building a new home, pretty soon your news feed is filled with it's a little drone video of this house. And none of the finishes are what we need. They're all really awesome. So then you go in to build this house and your expectation is that you're going to get that. So you've anchored to this like really beautiful place that you feel is zen and wonderful. And then it comes down to dollars and you can't afford to do that. But you settle somewhere in the middle versus just getting what you get. I'm right. I'm positive I'm right about it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that does impact how people view it, and they get anchored to that image. And at the end of the day, your need is shelter.
So think about this.
Like what you need and what you want in a house can be two very, very different things.
Elias, 20 years ago, how many people, do you know what Cambria quartz is?
Yes.
It's one of the high-end quartz, right? The new thing now is you put it on your backsplash to your cabinets. How many people 20 years ago did that? They just put in a countertop. It wasn't even solid surface. Something you can buy for like $100 today at Home Depot. Now, that countertop's $20,000. It's driving, the cost is being driven up massively by the finishes that people are requiring.
Yeah.
What's the standard countertop called? I don't even know what it's called anymore.
Dude, I have no idea.
You know, the stuff that's like particle board or MDF underneath with the...
It's called a countertop.
It's a countertop.
I don't know what the material is.
So just think if you're building a house, but you put those countertops in instead of quartz, it's like tens of thousands of dollars. Then the cabinets that people put in, it's not just a oak cabinet anymore. You have all kinds of different decisions to make and different slide outs and all these really unique features that actually don't provide anything to your point of shelter.
Right. But people buy on emotion. So,
but that's why I'll give you another example. But I also think, I think that's why the cost of homes are going up. People are expecting nicer finishes. But here's what's ironic. If you go to a spec house, right? The builder built it. Now they're trying to sell it. You didn't pick the stuff out. That's 20% less than you're going to spend if you build it yourself. And most people are still happy with it. I've been through the building process 2 times, a couple of remodels too. And here's what you realize happens. The color of that countertop, the color of that wall, all these little details are really important during the planning phase, like when you're doing it. After you move in and you live there 6 months, nobody cares.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it. Like that $20,000 countertop you put in, if you would have put in a 5 after you got in there and got beyond like, oh, this is what I really want. Yeah, it'd be totally fine. And you'd be happy.
Yep. Because it's, regardless of how nice it is, it's just going to get trashed. People live there. You know, that's one thing I've talked with, my wife about where, because, and you know, when you have little kids, it's challenging to just maintain the house, right? Between the messes they make and the stuff they leave out. And, you know, at some point, you just almost got to come to the realization that people live here. It's a house that people live in. All the stuff is going to get abused.
Especially if you have kids.
Oh, why is there a little purple spot on the wall? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's a crayon. Maybe it's juice. Maybe it's a piece of Play-Doh.
Do you know how I just thought about this. Now I actually can prove to people that you don't really care once you're in there. How many people have that juice stain on the wall or the Christmas tree that hit the ceiling or the hole in the drywall, a little tiny hole, or the nicked up edge?
And they fix it.
They fix it.
Only people who are very, very particular.
No, they only fix it.
Many.
They fix it when they're getting ready to sell it.
Yeah.
And that's how I know people don't care that much. Because when you were living there, you were like, oh, we have to get that fixed.
Yeah. And if you were going to buy the house, it would be, oh, that has to be fixed before I move there.
I'm not taking possession if there's a little scratch there. There's a scratch. Like, I just think about my own house.
You're making me feel bad. We have a cabinet that in our kitchen, one of the cabinets opens and then like to the opening of the hallway. Well, this winter it was open and I turned around and I ran into it. So I broke the cabinet door.
Well, you don't care that much. It still shuts, right?
And I know how to fix it, right? If I just got to get some clamps and some wood glue and glue it together, sand it, touch it up a little bit. I absolutely could fix it. And it would take me an afternoon. But guess what? There's just an open cabinet without a door.
But you don't care that much. That's my point. But if
I am gonna fix it before we market our house to sell.
Right. The only reason you're fixing it though is for somebody else.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it does bother me. I don't like looking at it, but I also don't want to go commit 6 hours to fix it.
It goes to my point.
Yeah.
When you're buying a house, building a house, and everybody should really think about this seriously, because I had this talk with my wife and we're thinking about doing this stuff. And it's all these tiny little details that you think are super important. You just proved that they're not. You're living with a cabinet that's broken. And it might annoy you, but it doesn't annoy you enough to fix it.
Fix it this weekend.
So in our house, we had one of those slide out garbage cans.
Yeah.
And it's got soft close. Well, the soft close hasn't worked for like 3 years. And that door front gets like,
oh, I'm sure kids wrench on it.
Yeah. Pushing garbage in, why would we take it out? We'll just shove it to the bottom. And I'm guilty too. Like, I can shove a little more in here. So, it bent the frame. Well, finally the other day I'm like, all right, the door's all, the top where you put the garbage in, it's all beat up. Finally I succumb. I called up the cabinet company. I'm like, could you guys put a new one in? Like
a new slider.
Yeah, it was, and a new door front. Cause it was just annoying me. I'm like, God, every time I got to push this thing in and it wasn't shutting all the way. I'm like, it's time. But it took me like 2 years to get to that point. All the stuff in my house is breaking.
Yeah, and you have a nice, relatively new house.
All the stuff in my house is breaking. My dishwasher broke the other day.
But your trash cabinet was not working correctly.
My dishwasher went out. I told you I'm going on my third one. The handle was broken, so I had to open it, and half the door top would like come open with it. So it's been broken. I told my wife, I'm like, just do it till it dies. Well, the other day, it hadn't broken yet. My wife ordered a new dishwasher. She's like, I can't do it anymore. Like, pieces are falling apart. I'm like, fine, get a new dishwasher. 2 days ago, this light starts beeping, and the thing, it won't shut off. It's like trying to run, it won't run. If I power it off, it powers back on. So I actually had to shut off the breaker to keep the dishwasher off.
Wow.
But yeah, everything's falling apart. Their dishwasher. That was a COVID dishwasher, though. I think that's the problem. So those are a lot of the things of why I believe
you better
home.
remodel your whole kitchen.
Nah, it doesn't need
that's
that.
the solution.
Nah, just keep
Need a new
replacing the stuff as I
dishwasher.
need to.
Remodel the whole kitchen.
Nah, I don't think that's the solution. But I think those are the challenges people are facing. I mean, if you look at buying a new house or building a new house, there are a lot of people that are second guessing it. You're one of them. I'm one of them. Like, do I really want to spend that to get a new place? Or do I just want to figure out how to make where I'm at keep working?
Yeah, at least around here, the new construction home, you're going to get a smaller home. If you buy an existing home, you can get a bigger home for a better price. It's crazy.
The problem is that, well, if you can go to that bigger home and not have to remodel it, if you have to go remodel it.
Right. And you look at, and just, go look at the pictures and with how trends go 5 years from now, you remodel the whole thing today, in 5 years, it's going to be out of date for what people want.
I don't know if it's 5 years. I think it's more like a decade.
Okay. Even a decade.
But that's pretty good. So when we moved into our house, our plan was to stay there for 8 years. That was our plan, because that's about the time stuff starts to break and you got to replace it, and stuff starts to become out of style. And I'm kind of under the assumption, if I remodel, I'm not going to get most of that money out of it, because that's individual to my personal style.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of like, man, it's pretty expensive to move. And there's other things that are affecting buyers. The fees on everything are higher, taxes are higher, interest rates are higher. Just a lot of things that go into, buying a home, and it's part of the reason they're shrinking. People want to have nice finishes. They just can't afford to go get the big house and have the nice finishes.
Well, hopefully that changes. Hopefully that can get fixed for people.
Not with a 4.5% 10-year yield.
Probably
pretty
not.
Challenging. With that said, you have any other remarks for this show?
Nope.
We're good?
Said it all.
Kind of a short one. I guess it's summertime, time to get on vacation. But appreciate everybody listening. If anybody wants help getting a financial plan put together, you can reach us at btwellshow.com. We'd be happy to sit down and walk you through that process. If you like the content, do us a favor, subscribe to our podcast and our channels, and we can keep getting you this information. Thanks for listening.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Premier Investments and Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide tax advice. Please consult your tax professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. There's no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs, and does not assure a profit or protect against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs, and does not assure a profit or protect against loss. Consult your tax professional about eligibility to Roth and traditional IRA contributions. Contributions and earnings in a Roth IRA can be withdrawn without paying taxes and penalties if the account owner is at least 59 and a half and has held a Roth IRA for at least 5 years.